Everyone? I'm good. All right, thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Friday. Usually we do these on Mondays and Thursdays. Nice day today out in the community. We're vaccinating in Liverpool High School and at Abundant Life Church. It was good to be out, good to see people getting vaccinated. It's been a busy day on Friday. This morning, first let's just put some things in perspective. After the murder of George Floyd, the governor of the state of New York charged chief elected officers of communities to start a community dialogue between law enforcement and the community at large. We took that responsibility very seriously in Onondaga County. We had great partners, District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick, Mayor Ben Walsh. Our teams worked very hard developing committees to look at various things, working with law enforcement officers, community activists, and we started a really important dialogue. We had multiple public hearings. At these public hearings, we had an exchange of ideas, conversations about experiences. These experiences at times were uncomfortable to listen to, as I was on each and every one of them. But we need to have those conversations when we talk about tough issues. And we need to have those if we're going to heal as a community. And so that's what happened. And shortly after that, we put together a plan that went to the county legislature and was adopted unanimously. And I want to thank Chairman Knapp, who's with me today, for that. I then reached out and sent the Sheriff Conway a letter focused in on three key things I, being the chief elected officer of this county, wanted to see. And the three of them were as follows. One, I wanted the chief to provide me with a body camera program. And I asked specifically for that so that our deputies would have available to them the best technology to confront what are sometimes very difficult situations. And I believe this program protects our deputies, A, the most. Two, it helps the community and it brings confidence to the process. I also referenced the fact that I want to work, my second goal is working with Monica Williams in her department to really work to diversify future classes of deputies and correction officers. And third, accreditation for not just the Sheriff's Department, but all of our law enforcement partners. So they go through a process and they have the best training and tools to deal with very difficult situations. We've seen very difficult situations in this community. We've seen mental health in this community really suffer. And so when our law enforcement officers are put in these situations, they need to have every tool at their disposal. I sent this letter on February 25th. It was received on February 25th. I had not received a response until this morning via press conference. I was pleased to learn that the sheriff was very much interested in the body camera program. And you know what they say, we strike while the iron is hot. I had publicly said we were going to put money into the budget in 2022. I have that power. Chairman Knapp supported that initiative. And then it would be up to the sheriff to implement the program as the elected sheriff of this county. Hearing the sheriff's position this morning, I'm happy to report I've directed Purchasing Director Dan Hammer to immediately begin the procurement process for body cameras, coming up with a cost structure. We did this for the Syracuse Police Department. We do the procurement for and purchasing for the city of Syracuse. Secondly, Law Department is currently working on a fund balance resolution. As soon as we have the exact dollar figure we need related to what the cost will be for the body camera program, Chairman Knapp has agreed to sponsor, and I would ask Chairman Knapp and the legislature to consider this being on the May agenda as a waiver item. If these two things can happen, I think we can see this body camera program expedited, and the sheriff and his team will be able to work through that but hopefully we'll see that happen in 2021, as we believe we can probably move through this process very quickly. I think it's important that we get this done. I was happy to see the sheriff's position today. I think our sheriff's department does a very good job, and I think they've done a very good job specifically over the last year in what has been very challenging times. And so we have a lot of big things we got to do together moving forward. This is a good first step. There's still more we need to do moving forward as we deal with very complicated issues. Questions?
How are you certain that the sheriff received the letter on February 25th?
The letter was emailed to him, and the letter was received by his email. Whether he read the letter, I don't read the sheriff's email.
It seems like conversations that could have happened a lot more behind closed doors, sometimes politicians call it sausage making, probably could have happened and avoided all of this extra drama today. Do you regret how this has kind of unfolded in public?
We got to the end result that I wanted. I guess I didn't call a press conference today, and until 3:30 today. And again, this was, I believe, the sheriff's press conference was based off of a report from Syracuse.com, which I've been asked at these briefings I do twice a week about this recently. I'm on the record. There is never a question if there was going to be body camera money in the 2022 budget. That was never a question. This has been on record. I was asked that question by Syracuse.com. I stated the same priorities in that article that I wrote to the sheriff on February 25th.
I think, well, one of the issues he had was that money wasn't, that there wasn't money for vehicles, that he had lost vehicles.
That's not true.
Personnel.
That's not true. The sheriff, the legislature gave the sheriff the ability to use drug seizure funds earlier this year. He bought new vehicles. We'll get you the exact numbers on the vehicles. The sheriff has gotten more vehicles since he's been sheriff than the previous sheriff did. So again, does that mean he got as many as he wants? I don't know. But every year the legislature specifically had an initiative to continue the replacement program of vehicles.
Is his overall budget, is it decreased year to year over the past 5, 6, 7 years?
The 2021 county budget was $86 million less than the year before. Every department decreased.
What about the years before that for the sheriff?
Normally the sheriff's department budget doesn't decrease.
I asked you yesterday whether or not there had been any pushback from the sheriff. When you spoke to him, I'm assuming you've spoken to him privately today.
I have not spoken to the sheriff yet today, no.
So is this the first time the sheriff is hearing about this new body camera program?
Correct. This is what he asked for. This is what he's getting. We're going to strike while the iron's hot.
Syracuse Police, when I asked the sheriff today what dollar figure he would ask you for, he referred us to the program for body cameras at Syracuse Police. Each camera for each officer for 5 years is about $9,500. So for 200 officers, that's almost, I want to get my math right, $2 million? Mm-hmm. Is that about the money you're prepared to spend for a 5-year contract?
We will go through the process to go and look at the updated costs in the marketplace. Again, our purchasing department did this for SPD before. Other counties do this. We'll figure out what the cost is. We'll get input from the sheriff on the technology that the sheriff would like to see used. And then we will go forward with the appropriate fund balance resolution that Chairman Knapp has agreed to sponsor.
Could the figure be $2 million?
It could.
And is this money, you say fund balance, is this some of the savings that actually shockingly happened as a result of cuts from the pandemic? Am I getting the money in the
Yeah, so from a functionality standpoint, right? So right now in the 2021 budget, we're in the second quarter. So we can't, the legislature was very wise in this budget because of so many moving things that they gave me flexibility if revenues come in over budget to be able to shore up some of these things. We're not quite there yet, so from a functionality standpoint, we will receive an appropriation out of our savings account which is, to your point, $25 million more than it was a year ago. And so whether it's $2 million, $1 million, whatnot, we will use this funding to get the body cameras purchased. Again, the cameras themselves are not the expensive piece of it. It's the actual data storage and how long you need to store the various footage. And again, our teams will work very closely with Sheriff Conway and his team to develop and get the Sheriff's Department the best technology available.
Take us through the process for, because I don't know, take us through the process of from as soon as this press conference ends, what's the process of getting a body, from here to getting a body camera on the sheriff's desk?
Yeah, so we'll start doing the diligence with the various vendors and the various departments that use the various vendors. Once we have that diligence, we'll go to the sheriff and say, here's what we have. These are the various options. What is your thought? We then need to see if there is a state contract, can we purchase off the old Syracuse contract? Can we piggyback off of another contract? Do we need a request for proposals? Those are all things that we do for every department in county government and many governments here locally. From that standpoint, we will develop a number from that, what we think the cost would be. We will then have a fund balance resolution drafted. Outside of the budget, anytime there's any new spending, it needs an executive initiative. Only I can advance that. I will advance that. I still need a legislative sponsor. Chairman Knapp has agreed to be the legislative sponsor. Chairman Knapp has the authority to put it in May's committee if we can meet that timeline, or May's session. And so from that, when the funds are appropriated, they'll be appropriated. Then we will purchase the equipment and technology, and then the sheriff will have all the tools he needs to actually physically implement the program.
How often do you talk to the sheriff, like on a normal basis?
I haven't spoken to the sheriff in a little while. Our teams interact daily. So again, I sent the letter on February 25th. The first response I heard directly from the sheriff was via press conference today at, what's today's date, April 23rd?
And that letter was in response to the police reinvention
Yeah,
stuff that
yeah.
you worked together on.
Yes, absolutely. The community worked together on it, and it was a healthy process. And so these were the three goals that I had out of this next step. And being that I propose a budget, these goals are going to be reflected in the 2022 budget. Now, the sheriff has signed off on the major goal, and he doesn't want it in 2022. He wants it in 2021. We're all on board. Let's get it done.
Do you think that letter was a surprise to him if you guys worked together on that police reinvention plan?
No, we send letters to elected officials all the times, and we didn't. Sheriff Conway didn't participate directly in the plan. Chief Cicerelli did, and they absolutely knew our intentions were to move forward with body camera programs, as well as looking at future diversity measures for future classes, and as well as accreditation. So we communicated that verbally. Sometimes when you're working through deputies and staff verbally, you formalize those communications, and that's what we did on February 25th.
You know, you sent him a letter in February. Has there been any follow-up conversation? Sheriff, did you get my letter? Sheriff, did you get my email? Anything since?
No, not directly between the sheriff and I. We've been busy.
Why did it take so long?
Why did what take so long? What do you mean?
Because I think what he was saying was he's talked about a pilot
Yeah.
program back in 2017, 2018.
Yeah, the sheriff in 2017, I was the chairman of the legislature, so I've done some research on this. So in 2017, the sheriff did request to the executive branch 5 things that did not get funded. To restore the sheriff's salary line to actual cost of staffing. This is from 2017. Number 2, to restore automotive equipment funding for 22 vehicles. Number 3, restore funding for required maintenance procedures for Air 1. Number 4, fund our supply line to 2018 requested level. Number 5, fund our capital equipment line to 2018 level. So the sheriff, in his budget, asked for these 5 things to the executive at the time. The executive at the time did not grant these 5 things. The sheriff, in the presentation to the legislature, then asked for these 5 things. So on the face of the request, it does not specifically mention body cameras. If you dig more into the request under the number 4 line, it did specifically address a pilot program for body cameras. Via the minutes, I personally had conversations about it because I'm very familiar with body cameras and the pros with them coming from the city council. And in the minutes, it references that funding wasn't there. I had a suggestion that was never implemented in that. I suggested to the sheriff that he uses his drug seizure account funds to potentially fund the program. The fund on that day in September 19th of 2017 had a minimum of $1 million in it that he could have used for that. That was when the sheriff talked about it. The sheriff was correct when he said, I talked about this in that time. That's the context of it. Since I've been county executive, in our budget that we received from the sheriff's department, we have not received a request for body cameras.
Do you think you should have received a request for body cameras?
No, here nor there, it's appropriate we have the program now. So I don't look back and say, why didn't you give me that a year ago or the year before? The program is appropriate right now. The timing, it's a necessity now with what's happened in our country.
Is that
County
the
executive, what kind of confidence should the people of Onondaga County have that you and the sheriff have a functioning relationship that serves the people of Onondaga County?
I think we have a very good relationship. Our teams work every day. I think the sheriff's done a good job. I was taken back by this morning that I didn't, that he didn't communicate that he supported our efforts because it would have been, if he communicated that, would have been very easy. He could have called and said, hey, Ryan, let's get this done. Let's get it done right now.
Has the pandemic closed lines of communication?
The pandemic challenges all forms of communication at all levels. There's no question.
At the end of the day, the deputies of Onondaga County will have cameras, and the people of Onondaga County protected by them should have confidence in that process. Is that kind of how this conversation should end, that what the sheriff now wants, what you've previously endorsed?
I think it's a victory. This is what I asked for. This is what the legislature supported. There was a question mark earlier via reporting where the sheriff was, right? The sheriff clarified his position, but kind of threw the ball in my court, right? So this is great news. Let's get it done. This is what we want.
How soon would you like the devices on the streets?
I think that's up for the sheriff to figure out how that works. I don't pretend to know how to run the sheriff's department, okay? We look at, with all of our departments, we go through a process of funding, looking at things, and I think it's up to the sheriff to figure out how he can implement this quickly. Clearly, 2021 is a goal of the sheriff. That's a goal of ours. We're going to try to get through our process, which is more red tape, as quick as we can, so the sheriff can get this program implemented as quickly as possible.
Let's remove his implementation piece, because that is his decision. How quickly do you think you could have boxes of the devices at his doorstep? Again,
you can't order anything till the ledge approves it. I got to be able to give the ledge a number that I think I need to go procure it. So the earliest we could probably order something would be in May.
So this is something the legislature is on board with, they're for it.
I got the boss right here.
And then do you think that, I mean, does the legislature, should it have played a more active part in maybe doing this and putting a resolution or budget line out there?
Well, again, to your first question, I think there is broad support. Obviously, this has come about very quickly. I've only had a chance to talk to a couple of legislators, but the ones I've talked to so far are supportive. But the main piece is, just a month ago, we approved unanimously, as the county executive noted, the police reform plan, which one of the highlights of that package was a body camera program. And that, again, that was passed unanimously. So I anticipate broad, if not unanimous, support for this initiative. As far as the legislature's involvement in this, again, like the county executive, we work with the sheriff's department folks every day. We have things happening in our districts that we interact with them. And so we have informal conversations, but if this isn't asked for as part of his budget, that's, you know, we don't pretend to be the experts. You know, what you need for your department is what you request. We certainly talk about it, maybe during the hearings and things like that, but if it's not requested for, it's not something we usually would put in there without the county executive or the sheriff themselves coming up saying, yeah, this is something we really need to do at this time.
So this resolution would be specifically for body cameras, because I know the sheriff said, I got myriad other needs. If I just get a line item, I can, you know.
Yeah. This won't be a line item. The sheriff will not be able to take this funds and appropriate them somewhere else. So the sheriff is correct. The sheriff did a great job in 2021, coming in with a pro forma budget, just like every other department in county government did. And the sheriff may be correct that he may need to bring on another class with retirements. I look forward to that because, as Doug, we talk about, my number 2 priority is to diversify deputies and corrections officers to work with us. You can't, how you do that is you work with that when you have your incoming classes. So the sheriff may 100% be right that he needs a new class going into 2022. But again, I thought that they did a really good job coming in on their budget, a really good job when we needed them to kind of say, I need this, this, or this, or else I'm not going to do this. That's not where this is. So he gets to decide if there's a program. The funding for it, I have a role in that. The chairman has the final say in that. The money that we're going to allocate for this will go to body cameras and technology, and so that we can check this one off the box.
I think the Syracuse Police Department said that one thing that they've learned is this takes long-term funding too, to keep the equipment up, to keep the storage right long-term. Is this funding is beyond an initial purchase, but perhaps a 5-year contract at like $2 million?
We'll see what the procurement looks like, Andrew. We've never been through those, but once you have a program like this, you don't just get rid of it. Yeah. Other questions? All right, folks. So again, very happy today. I appreciate Sheriff Conway agreeing with us that we need to get going on this, and we will, and we got more big things to work with all of our departments in county government. So see you guys on Monday.